I've always been a spoiled prick. It was my brand. I married an ice queen who didn't love me, and together we produced a mini-iceberg of a daughter. By the time my daughter was 5, I was still the undisputed tyrant of the household, treating them like high-end service staff. Honestly, I lived for it. I loved the way they looked at me with simmering resentment while still attending to my every whim. It felt like winning a game they hadn't agreed to play. Then, the feed appeared. Translucent lines of text began scrolling across my vision like a high-speed Twitch chat. Finally, the villain's countdown starts. The male lead just transferred to the female lead's company. He even took a little bit to KFC today. The story is finally getting on track. He spends all day abusing our queen and the kid. Thank God they eventually kick him to the curb to make the hero happy. Watching this spoiled brat end up homeless and paralyzed from the waist down after a car accident is going to be peak cinema. I'm literally just waiting for the scene where the happy family of 3 visits him in the hospital just to mock his useless, broken body. Pure catharsis. I jerked my legs back so hard I nearly gave myself whiplash. My wife, Catherine, who was currently kneeling to dry my face, and our daughter, Madeline, who was massaging my calves, were both splashed with water. The two of them, the big iceberg and the little iceberg, simultaneously knitted their brows. Their expressions were identical masks of irritation. I started stammering. That's enough. I'll do it myself. Madeline, only 5, tilted her head. Her tiny mind clearly couldn't process why her father, the man of 1,000 demands, was suddenly calling inaudible. Daddy, is the water too cold? My heart hammering against my ribs. No. I'm done. I don't need the massage. Just stand up. Both of you. I swallowed hard, looking at Catherine. She was still on one knee, a designer towel draped over her arm, looking like a Greek statue carved from spite. You too. Get up. Compared to Madeline, Catherine was a fortress of composure. Used to my mercurial moods, she calmly stood and reached for a fresh towel. The more humiliated they are now, the better the payback will feel later. Making a billionaire CEO wash his feet and an heiress rub his legs? This guy has a death wish. I stared at the scrolling text in silence. So I was the villain, a male supporting character, designed to be hated. Catherine and Madeline were the stars of some cosmic drama, and I was just the obstacle. According to the feed, I was basically a placeholder. Catherine had only had Madeline with me because she was afraid of childbirth and wanted to practice with a secondary character before the real hero arrived. Eventually, this guy, the male lead, would appear, rescue them from my tyranny, and they'd finally see what a good man actually looked like. Then they'd become a perfect family of 3, and I'd be a memory in a wheelchair. I clenched my fists. Fine, Catherine was one thing. We were a corporate merger, an arrangement of convenience with 0 emotional foundation. But Madeline, I looked at the little girl standing obediently by the chair. She had her mother's sharp features and that same cool, detached gaze, but she was my daughter. I had raised her. I wasn't about to just hand her over to some hero, so he could play house with my life. I cleared my throat, trying to sound casual. Hey, kiddo. If mommy and I ever got a divorce, who would you want to live with? Madeline blinked. Then, mimicking her mother's stoic posture, she spoke with a chillingly adult coldness. Daddy, don't make pointless hypotheses. I felt the air leave my lungs. I looked up and met Catherine's amber eyes. They were like a still lake, beautiful, but there was no life beneath the surface. She stepped forward, knelt again, and took my foot in her hand to finish drying it. Don't say things like that in front of the child, she said softly. Madeline nodded, turned like a little soldier, and walked toward the door. I'm going to sleep. The feed exploded with mockery. What is he thinking? The daughter is a carbon copy of the mother. She hates him just as much. Catherine at least knows how to mask it for the sake of the prenup. The kid looks like she's holding back vomit every time he touches her. LOL, as if he'd ever actually divorce her. And even if he did, why would Madeline choose him? To be his footstool for the rest of her life. His only purpose is to be a piece of trash, get thrown out, and then die in a wreck, so we get a happy ending. My heart skipped a beat. I snatched the towel out of Catherine's hands. I said I got it. Catherine's brow furrowed slightly, but she didn't argue. Later, lying in bed, I tried to process the information. I pulled up my silk pajama bottoms, staring at my legs. They were long, well-toned, and currently very much attached to my body. I refused to accept a future where I lost them. I decided then and there. I had to stop the oppression. If the feed was right, I couldn't stop the hero and Catherine from meeting. Fate was a railroad track. But if I could prove to my daughter that I was a loving father, maybe, just maybe, she'd choose me when the inevitable split happened. I looked up just as Catherine stepped out of the unsoot. She was wrapped in a plush robe, droplets of water tracing the line of her throat. When she saw me lying there with my pajama legs rolled up, staring intensely at my own shins, she paused. Her eyes darkened. I was too busy planning my world's best dad campaign to notice the shift in the room. Then, Catherine walked to the closet and pulled out a set of lingerie I'd bought for her months ago. She held a black lace slip in one hand and a sheer purple set in the other. Her ears were slightly flushed, but her face remained a mask of marble as she waited for my command. The feed went wild. Why is the screen going black? I pay for the premium tier, let me see. Villain, I'll stop cursing you if you just turn the camera toward your wife. Miles, share the wealth. Let us see the CEO in her prime. Amidst the horny comments, a few original story purists chimed in. I hate this. Even knowing how Madeline was conceived, I still feel like Catherine is being coerced. Does the villain not see how much she hates him every time he makes her wear that stuff? It's disgusting. She said no the first time and he keeps forcing the dress-up hobby on her. He's a creep. Whatever. Just remember those legs she's standing on won't be there much longer. That makes it easier to watch. I took a sharp breath. Looking at Catherine, who was bracing herself to put on clothes she clearly loathed just to satisfy my whims, I grabbed the duvet and yanked it over my legs. I'm not in the mood tonight. Let's just sleep. The silence that followed was heavy enough to crush a man. The feed was stunned. Wait, did he just pass? Look at Catherine's face. She looks pissed. What did he do now? Probably some new psychological torture. Look how hard she's gripping that lace. She's at her breaking point. I noticed it too. Catherine's expression was harrowing. The moment I said not in the mood, her face darkened by several shades. Usually, it took an hour of coaxing and demanding to get her into those outfits. Now, seeing the feed's vitriol, I was terrified of even breathing too loud. Understood, Catherine said. Her voice was as cold and clinical as a surgeon's. She tossed the lingerie back into the closet, climbed into bed, and turned away from me. I gripped the blanket, feeling my legs beneath the fabric. I love you, legs. See you tomorrow. The next morning, the sun was streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows of our penthouse. I walked into the dining area to find the big and little icebergs already seated. The moment I sat down, Catherine stood up to get me a croissant. Madeline, struggling with the weight of a heavy glass milk carafe, hopped off her chair to pour my drink. The feed started up again. He really is a piece of work. They have 3 nannies and a chef, but he makes the wife and kid wait on him. Unbelievable. He says it's to teach Madeline the value of service, so she'll be a good wife someday. As if an heiress needs to serve anyone. He just likes the power trip. He's a control freak. My pulse spiked. I reached out and caught Madeline's small arm before she could pour. She looked up at me, confused. I put in a spoon and a half of sugar, just like you like. I took the carafe from her and poured it myself. It's fine. I can do it. Go back to your breakfast. Madeline stared at me as if I'd grown a second head, but she slowly climbed back into her seat. Catherine emerged from the kitchen, looking troubled. We're out of the imported balsamic glaze. I've already sent the driver to pick some up. I picked up a plain piece of toast. It's fine. I don't need it today. The room went silent. Even the housekeeper paused in the hallway. Catherine looked at her empty hands, her brow deepening into a heavy frown. Daddy, Madeline whispered, her eyes wide. You didn't throw the plate at Mommy. I choked on my toast. Was I really that much of a monster? The feed answered for me. Wait, did he actually take the toast? Usually, if the glaze is missing, he has a full-blown tantrum. Last time, he threw the whole tray across the room. Look at poor Madeline. She's terrified. She thinks her dad has been possessed by a demon. I took a bite of the dry toast, too guilty to keep reading. A small piece of greens fell from my sandwich and landed on my thigh. Without thinking, I frowned at the stain on my silk loungewear. Suddenly, a hand reached out with a napkin. Catherine's hand. She began to wipe my thigh, and for a second, my heart stopped. I had a flash of the future, my legs becoming invisible, growing wings, and waving goodbye to me. I swatted her hand away and stood up abruptly. I can do it myself. I snapped, then immediately softened my voice. I mean, it's just a small thing. I've got it. I looked at my daughter. Maddie, from now on, you don't need to pour my milk or rub my legs. Daddy is a big boy. I can take care of myself. Madeline's brow remained tightly knitted. Daddy, are you sick? I felt a sting in my chest. This kid. I try to be nice, and she thinks I'm dying. For the rest of the meal, I stayed quiet. I didn't bark orders. I didn't complain about the temperature of the coffee. Madeline kept glancing at me, her tiny face scrunched in suspicion. Catherine's eyes tracked my movements like a hawk watching a confusing new prey. After they left for the day, I collapsed onto the sofa. I looked up at the massive, oversized wedding portrait hanging in the center of the living room. The truth was, I had been obsessed with Catherine long before the merger. But she was a glacier, and every guy I knew had crashed and burned against her. I had my pride. I didn't know how to pursue someone like her. So when the families tied us together, I was secretly ecstatic. Until our wedding night. I'd been outside her study, ready to be the perfect husband, when I heard her talking to a friend. Miles is a spoiled brat, the friend had said. You really drew the short straw. And Catherine's voice, so flat and indifferent. It's just a transaction. We each get what we need. That's what marriage is. That little flame of hope in my chest had died right then. If she wanted a spoiled brat, I decided I would give her the most demanding, arrogant version of myself she could. Imagine. If she wasn't going to love me, she was at least going to notice me. I designed every inch of this house. Every rug, every appliance. Catherine never cared. The only time she'd voiced an opinion was when I insisted on hanging that giant wedding photo. It's tacky, she'd said. It doesn't fit the aesthetic. I'd hung it anyway, out of pure spite. Now, 6 years later, I finally saw it for what it was, a monument to a one-sided fantasy. Elena, I called out to the housekeeper. Get someone to take this down, and throw it away. The boy who hung that photo was gone. The man remaining realized that in Catherine's eyes, he was no different from the furniture. I could handle a loveless marriage. What I couldn't handle was the feed, which was currently live-streaming the hero's day like a CCTV camera. The hero just got Catherine a coffee. She actually smiled at him. I'm screaming. He made a typo on a report. He's such a clumsy dork. Catherine is definitely going to find him adorable. I closed my eyes trying to sleep. When I woke up, the sky was bruised purple, and thunder was rolling across the city. My phone buzzed. It was Catherine. Did you fall asleep on the sofa? Her voice was steady. Yeah, I mumbled. I have to work late. If it gets too late, I'll stay at the hotel near the office. Have Madeline sleep in your room tonight. Before I could answer, the feed blurred past. She is working late, but the hero is there too. A rainy night and empty office. It's so romantic. I love a power couple. The Ice Queen CEO and her hardworking, soulful employee. Unlike her man-child husband. Exactly. He's scared of a little thunder? He needs his 5-year-old to hold his hand? What a loser. I took a deep breath. No need. Stay at the office. I'm fine. As I spoke, I noticed Madeline standing by the door, her backpack still on. She'd been listening. She didn't say a word, just turned and walked into her room. Catherine spoke again on the phone. The wall behind you? I turned. The wedding photo was gone, leaving a blank, pale rectangle. Where is it? She asked. I had it tossed, I said. Go back to work. Bye. I hung up before she could respond. I stared at the empty wall. It looked better this way. Cleaner. After dinner, the storm worsened. I was rubbing my eyes when I felt a presence. Madeline was standing there, clutching a storybook. Fine, she said, her face a mask of duty. Let's go. I'll put you to sleep. I wasn't actually that afraid of thunder. I just hated the heavy, oppressive atmosphere of storms. Usually, I use the weather as an excuse to be particularly demanding with Catherine in bed. Ugh, he's so annoying. A 5-year-old has to tuck him in? This is ridiculous. He's so oblivious. The kid looks like she's going to a funeral. He can't harass his wife, so he's harassing his daughter. When does the hero get here? I looked at Madeline. She looked like a miniature version of Catherine, emotionless and bored. It's okay, Maddie. I can sleep by myself. Go to bed. I waved her off. For a split second, her lip trembled. But Mommy said I had to stay with you. I was about to argue when the sound of a car horn honked in the courtyard. I froze. The feed froze too. Wait, why is Catherine home? What about the hero? Madeline dropped her book and ran to the door like it was a life raft. She grabbed her mother's hand the moment Catherine stepped inside. Daddy won't let me stay with him, she tattled, her voice tight. Catherine nodded, her face unreadable. The feed was a chaotic mess of question marks. Why are you back? I asked, confused. Catherine didn't answer. She was staring at the empty space where the wedding photo used to be. Her eyes seemed to turn a shade darker. You said it was tacky, I said, feeling defensive. So I got rid of it. She stared at me until I felt a chill. Then she turned to Madeline. Go to bed. Madeline blinked, looking at me. Do you still want the leg massage, Daddy?
No.
Go on. Madeline pouted a rare flash of emotion and then stomped off to her room. Catherine reached up and loosened her scarf. She looked stressed. Are you in a bad mood? She asked. No, I'm great. Best mood of my life. Silence. She took a deep breath. Outside, the rain lashed against the glass. The feed flickered. She left the hero for this? The plot is broken. Don't worry, the red thread of fate is stronger than steel. They'll find each other again. Just as that text scrolled by, Catherine's phone rang on the nightstand. She was in the bathroom, and the sound of the shower was already running. Phone. I called out. The feed perked up. Here it is. The hero is calling. Is the villain going to answer it? He's such a creep about privacy. Let him. It'll just make her hate him more. In the original book, he answered her phone once and screamed at the guy. Catherine ended up throwing him out. It was glorious. Then, Catherine's voice came from the bathroom. Answer it for me. See what they want. I stared at the phone as if it were a live grenade. No. Just come out and do it yourself. The water stopped instantly. Catherine stepped out, her hair a mess of shampoo suds. She looked at me, her gaze heavy and strange, then picked up the phone. A man's voice clear, bright, and soulful rang out through the quiet room. Miss Montgomery? I sent over the 2 proposals, but I haven't heard back. Catherine didn't look at the phone. She looked at me. She seemed to be waiting for something. I felt incredibly awkward. Why was the guy's voice so loud? The feed was losing it. Is he going to lose it? Usually, if a man calls her after hours, he breaks things. One time he even scratched her face. His tantrums just make the hero look better. Keep it up, Miles. Every scream is a nail in your coffin. The word coffin triggered a physical reaction. I started coughing violently. I stood up, heading for the door. I'm going to shower. A hand caught my arm. Catherine took a deep breath, as if she were suppressing a volcanic eruption. She hung up the phone without a word. It's after hours, she said to the dead screen. We'll talk tomorrow. Then she turned to me. A man calls me at night, and you have nothing to say? You aren't angry? The room was dead quiet. She stared at me for a long time, then slowly let go of my arm. That night, she tossed and turned until the early hours of the morning. The feed wouldn't stop. She's clearly regretting her choice. She's wondering why she isn't with the hero right now instead of this loser. He's pathetic. His wife is literally dreaming of another man right next to him. I clenched my fists under the covers. Fine. Whatever. As soon as I could convince Madeline to come with me, I was filing for divorce. I'd leave Catherine to her hero and her destiny. I just wanted my legs and my daughter. I didn't dream. When I woke up, Catherine was already gone. I walked into the breakfast nook. Madeline was there, her eyes tracking me with an intensity that made me uneasy. I reached out to ruffle her hair, and she went rigid. She pulled away subtly, her ears turning a bright, burning red. My hand hung in the air. The feed laughed at me. He can't take a hint. She hates him. Does he really think he can be daddy of the year now? It's too late. The hero gave her a piece of candy yesterday, and she's kept the wrapper under her pillow like a treasure. My heart felt like it was being squeezed. That hit harder than anything about Catherine. I'd spent years teasing Madeline, thinking her coldness was cute, a mini version of the woman I loved. I thought our power dynamic was a game, but the feed was telling me that no matter what I did, the plot had already decided she loved another man more. I pulled up a chair next to her. Madeline scooted her seat away, creating a 2-inch gap between us. Maddie, I said softly, do you like Daddy? She interrupted, her voice tiny but firm. I told you, don't call me that. Call me Madeline. She kept her head down, her ears still crimson. The feed. She's so done with him. Look how she's holding her breath. Yesterday when the hero called her a little bit, she beamed. Today her dad calls her Maddie, and she shuts him down. Like mother, like daughter. Loyal to the hero. My eyes burned. I looked at her, sitting on the very edge of her chair just to stay away from me, and I felt a sudden, crushing sense of defeat. What was the point? Why wait for the plot to turn me into a cripple? Why watch them fall in love with someone else in slow motion? I pulled my hand back and stood up. Fine. Madeline it is. I went back to my room. The feed flickered. Wait, do I actually feel bad for him? Don't be a simp. He's not the male lead. He doesn't get the girl. After Madeline left for school, I went into her room. I lifted her pillow. There it was, a single, bright candy wrapper. The jealousy was a physical pain in my gut. I didn't even know this guy, and I already hated him for stealing my daughter's heart. I sat there for 10 minutes before standing up. Before I was Madeline's father or Catherine's husband, I was Miles Montgomery. I had pride. I wasn't going to turn into a screaming, jealous wreck. I wasn't going to be their villain. I started looking up travel destinations. I needed to leave. My phone rang. It was an old friend, Leo. Hey, can you do me a huge favor and pick up a kid from preschool? He asked. He sounded frantic. Since when do you have a kid? I asked, confused. My sister's. I told you about her, she's back in the country, but she had an emergency. Madeline goes to the same school, right? My niece is super sweet. She'll be a good influence on your little ice cube. Just take her for a couple of hours. Before I could say no, he texted me the address and hung up. I sighed. I'd only been to Madeline's school once. She told me quite coldly, the nanny can handle it. You don't need to come. So I never went back. Leo wasn't kidding about his niece. The second I arrived, she grabbed my hand, called me Uncle Miles, and gave me a smile so bright, it nearly blinded me. My heart melted into a puddle. I felt a surge of resentment toward Catherine. If it weren't for her iceberg jeans, maybe Madeline would be like this soft, happy, and hugging my leg. Then, I saw a familiar face in the crowd. Mommy, Leo's niece squealed, running toward a woman. The woman smiled and looked at me. Miles? It's been forever. It was Becca. I barely recognized her. She used to be the girl next door who followed me and Leo around when we were teenagers. She looked different now, mature, but still glowing with that same warmth. Becca, Leo said you were out of the country. Just got back, she said. The little girl, Sophie, wouldn't let go of my hand. Uncle Miles, come have nuggets with us. Please. I couldn't say no to that face. We ended up at a local chicken place. I was laughing at one of Sophie's stories when I saw them. Madeline was standing a few feet away, a tall, handsome man holding her hand. What do you want to eat, little bit? My treat, the man said. Madeline pointed at a meal combo, then froze. She had seen me. The feed went into a frenzy. Oh my god. The plot is merging. The villain just caught the hero and the kid. Is he going to hit her? Look how scared she is. She stopped smiling. This is such a mess. But honestly, Miles and Becca look kind of cute together. With the little girl, they look like a real family. Sophie tugged on my arm. Uncle Miles, I can't see the menu. Lift me up. I looked at Madeline. The brilliant smile she'd been wearing for the hero had vanished. She looked at me with a gaze so cold it made my eyes sting. I'd never seen her smile like that. Not once. And here she was, giving it away to a stranger. She's looking at him like he's the devil. She's literally shielding the hero with her body. If I were Miles, I'd walk away. His own daughter clearly doesn't want to know him. I didn't say a word. I picked up Sophie, ignoring Madeline entirely. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Madeline's face tighten. She looked angry. I watched through the window as they left. Madeline let the man lead her away by the same hand she always pulled away from me. Becca spent the rest of the meal trying to cheer me up. She was as bubbly as she'd been at 16, and for a moment, I actually felt like a normal person. When she dropped me off at home, Sophie clung to me like a little koala. I laughed. She's just like you used to be, a total clinger. Becca's eyes softened. You remember that? I stepped out of the car and turned toward my front door, only to find two figures standing under the dim street lamp. Madeline and Catherine. Madeline was trembling, her fists clenched. Catherine was expressionless, but the atmosphere around her felt like a localized blizzard. The feed. They looked like two ghosts waiting to haunt him. Why are they so mad? Don't they hate him? According to the plot, Catherine and the hero were supposed to have a romantic dinner, but Madeline threw a fit and insisted on coming home. That's why Catherine is pissed. I walked past them into the house without a word. The air in the living room was thick enough to choke on. At dinner, Madeline refused to eat. Sir, the nanny whispered to me, maybe you should talk to her? She's usually so obedient when you're firm with her. The words grated on me. Obedience out of fear wasn't what I wanted anymore. She'd already eaten hero chicken. Why should I force her? Leave her be, I said. A second later, Madeline's bedroom door flew open. She stood there, eyes red-rimmed, glaring at me. You aren't even going to try? She screamed. Are you going to be her daddy now? I froze. Before I could speak, she burst into a full-on, heaving sob. Mommy is a liar. She said you liked people like her. I thought if I acted like her, you'd love me more. Liar, liar, liar. I hadn't seen Madeline show any real emotion in years. Seeing her break down like this was like watching a statue shatter. The feed. Wait, what? I think we missed something. Does Madeline actually like him? Madeline was hyperventilating now. You hugged that other girl today. You didn't even look at me. You didn't make me rub your legs. You don't want me anymore. I'm trying to be better, Maddie. I stammered, kneeling down. You like that lady because she smiles. You like her kid. Because she's loud. I'll be loud. I'll smile. Just don't be her daddy. I was completely lost. I looked at Catherine. She was standing there, looking genuinely stunned. The feed. Holy crap. The Ice Queen isn't a personality trait. It was a strategy. Catherine told her daughter that Miles only likes cold, distant women. She was literally gatekeeping her husband. I pulled Madeline into my arms. She clung to me, her small hands balled into my shirt. I'm not gonna be like mommy anymore. I'll be nice. Please don't hate me. I carried her back to bed. She was still hiccuping as she pulled a crushed candy wrapper from under her pillow. This is from mommy's assistant, she whispered. He gave it to me. I was saving it for you, but I thought if I gave it to you, you'd think I was a baby. My heart shattered. The feed. Wait, the hero is just an assistant? And she was saving the candy for her dad? I feel like a total idiot. We've been watching a completely different show. I looked at Madeline. So all that pulling away? The call me Madeline thing? That was all just acting like mommy. Madeline's face turned bright red. Because when you touch me, I want to giggle. And mommy said you think giggling is for losers. I looked at the door. Catherine was standing there, looking like she'd been caught in a lie. I didn't teach her that, Catherine said quickly. I thought that was her personality. Right? I said. And, your personality? Is that just how you are too? Catherine bit her lip. I can change. I stood up. Look, the kid is 5. She was just mimicking you. But we don't have a real marriage, Catherine. Maybe we should just end it. No. Catherine stepped into the room. I can change. I mean it. The feed was screaming. I tried to explain about the plot and the hero and the accident, but the words wouldn't come out. It was like I was muted. Catherine moved closer. Miles, look at me. She looked desperate. That night, I woke up to find her sitting on the edge of the bed. She was wearing that purple lingerie I'd bought her. She looked humiliated, her ears glowing red in the dark, but she didn't move. You said you liked this, she whispered. Don't leave. I stared at her. The Ice Queen was gone, replaced by a woman who was terrified of losing the only person who had ever been obsessed with her. The next morning, I was woken up by a tiny body jumping onto the bed. Good morning, best daddy in the world. Madeline squealed, planting a messy kiss on my cheek. The feed. My heart. I can't. This is too cute. I'm officially a Miles stan. Look at him go. Catherine was sitting up, looking exhausted and slightly grumpy. Madeline ignored her, crawling into my lap. I made you a piece of toast, daddy. I didn't even burn it much. I looked at Catherine. Her eyes were fixed on me, dark and possessive. The feed. Look at the jealousy on the CEO's face. She's being upstaged by a 5-year-old. I love this for her. Let her suffer a little. Later that day, Catherine had to go into the office. I decided to bring her lunch, a total villain power move. I dressed in my best suit, feeling like a new man. The feed. Showdown time. I walked into the Montgomery Holdings lobby. The receptionist beamed. Mr. Montgomery, the CEO is waiting for you. Catherine didn't just meet me in her office. She took me on a tour of the entire floor. We must have walked in circles for 20 minutes. The feed. She's literally marking her territory. She wants every employee to see him. Suddenly, we ran into a tall, handsome man. My heart stopped. It was the guy from the chicken place. The hero. The feed. Here we go. Drama. Oh. Mr. Montgomery, the man said, looking surprised. He looked at Catherine, then at me. I'm so glad I caught you. I braced myself for a confession of love or a challenge to a duel. I've been meaning to ask. The guy said, blushing slightly. What brand of organic milk do you buy for Madeline? My daughter is the same age, but she's way shorter, and she said Madeline gets the special kind from her dad. My wife is a CO too, no offense, Ms. Montgomery, and she's hopeless with grocery shopping. Could you help a fellow dad out? I stared at him. The male lead was just a guy with a short daughter? The feed. Wait, he's married. The hero is just a dad friend? The feed began to fade. The translucent text grew lighter and lighter until it vanished completely. I looked at my legs. They were fine. I looked at Catherine. She was holding my hand, so tight her knuckles were white. We walked into her office. Hanging right behind her desk, larger and even more tacky than before, was the giant wedding portrait I had thrown away. I had the housekeeper fish it out of the bin, she whispered, her face turning crimson. I lied. I always liked it. Her assistant walked in, smiling. Mr. Montgomery, it's so good to see the man who makes the boss's secret love lunch every day. I looked at the lunchbox in my hand. Secret love. Catherine turned away, pretending to check her emails, but I could see the tips of her ears. They were bright, beautiful red. My ice queen had melted a long time ago. I just had to stop being a prick long enough to notice. And